Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with a Spain news update. And according to one Spanish newspaper, things are starting to unravel for the Sanchez government, but more about that in just a moment. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. Thanks to people that supported the channel through a donation. You can see your name here. Thanks to people that bought merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your continuing support. Now, let's get into the news. And as I said, according to one newspaper here in Spain, the conservative newspaper ABC, for the Sanchez government, things are starting to unravel. And they have gone with the headline today, "First Signs of Social Unrest Against Pedro Sanchez." The government is trying to mitigate the sources of social discontent in order to prevent them from consolidating, becoming generalized, and undermining the discourse of economic recovery and the materialization of the way out of the crisis. The government has established the concept of fair recovery as the main element on which to base the second part of the legislature. However, the reality is that protests have returned to the streets, as demonstrated by the announced mobilizations in the transport sector, which could be joined by the rural workers, and the protests by workers in heavy industry. By mobilizing, the coalition government of Pedro Sanchez is going to be protested against even by the national and local police and civil guards, all those involved in the reform of the law on citizen security who feel directly harmed by the legislative reform. So there we go, people starting to hit the streets here in Spain, protesting about the way things are going. Transport sector workers, rural workers and heavy industry. And also, as we saw there, the national police, local police and the civil guard are also going to start protesting. And let's be honest, who can blame them? Now, anybody looking to change to solar energy here in Spain to avoid the energy crisis is in luck, because the government has announced that they will approve a €1.32 billion plan to provide aid for self-consumption of electricity. In the next few weeks, the government will present to the Council of Ministers an aid plan worth €1.32 billion to invest in solar roofs and energy communities with the aim of promoting self-consumption of electricity at a time when electricity prices on the wholesale market are rising unchecked. According to Televisión Española, the Ministry of Ecological Transition is finalizing this self-consumption strategy for the approval by the Council of Ministers in the coming weeks. After a rigorous study of the technical and socio-economic potential, it proposes reaching 9 gigawatts of self-consumption in 2030 in a target scenario distributed over 500,000 solar roofs. This is almost a quarter of the National Integrated Energy and Climate Plan 2021 to 2030 target for photovoltaics for that year of 39 gigawatts. So the government announcing a €1.32 billion plan to provide aid for the self-consumption of electricity. So as I said, if you're looking to change to photovoltaic energy here in Spain, it could be the time for you. Now, I mentioned yesterday that the government and trade unions here in Spain have come to an agreement on pension reform, and basically they want companies to foot the bill. But according to newspaper news, Spanish companies are already the fourth highest payers of social security contributions in Europe. It was to be expected that employers would not support a pension agreement that contemplated raising the social contributions they pay for each worker, even if only 0.6%. Employers have been saying for years that what they pay in social security contributions is very high compared to other European countries. Eurostat data show that we are already the fourth country in this ranking. We are only surpassed by Slovakia, Estonia and the Czech Republic. A worker who earns €1,000 net per month costs a company almost €2,000. This example is given by Albert Gibernau, Professor of Economics and Business at the Universitat Abata Oliba, CEU. There is no room to raise social security contributions as much as the government wants. It is no longer so much a debate about whether this 0.6% is too much or not. What is relevant is the message you are sending out. Who is going to support the welfare state the most? And the answer is that it is not going to be the companies, argues this expert. So there we go, companies here in Spain not willing to increase social security contributions for workers because according to them, they already pay enough. And as we saw in the article, there are only 3 other European countries where companies pay more. So it seems that the measure put forward by the government and trade unions is only going to be a temporary fix for a broken system. Now, if you've read the press here in Spain, you would know that the words COVID passport or COVID certificates are dominating headlines. As we can see in this article from El País, the spike in infections in Spain prompts the expansion of the use of the COVID passport. The surge in infections in Spain has precipitated new measures to control the transmission of the coronavirus. For now, there are no major restrictions or severe measures on the table because the epidemic situation is not the same as last autumn. Today, 79% of the population is vaccinated, and the incidence, although rising, is 88.6 cases per 100,000, not the 470 it was in November 2020. But the communities are making moves and are looking to the COVID passport as a new tool to contain contagion. The Basque Country, for example, has already requested authorization from the courts to require the vaccination certificate for access to nightlife venues and restaurants. Galicia, for its part, has also asked the judge to be able to demand a passport or a negative test when visiting patients admitted to hospitals and health workers. The experts consulted approve of the measure, but see it as insufficient to stop contagion. So it looks as though we're not going to have an Austrian-style confinement for the non-vaccinated here in Spain, but if you don't have a COVID certificate for whatever reason, your life and the things that you are allowed to do are going to be limited. Now let's have a look at a summary of the health situation in Spain, and we can see that accumulated incidence rate sitting at 88.65. The number of daily cases continues to increase. The number of COVID patients hospitalised around the country is sitting at 2,164, and there are 427 COVID patients still in ICU. Now there's some good news if you are a musician in the UK and you're looking to tour Spain, because Spain has scrapped visa requirements for UK touring musicians. The UK's music industry has welcomed the decision by the Spanish government to scrap post-Brexit visa requirements for UK artists on short-term tours, but warned significant issues still remain that will make many tours impossible. Spain's announcement means UK musicians and their crew will no longer need visas for engagements of less than 90 days, a change in policy that comes after months of lobbying from trade groups on both sides. The organisation UK Music, which has described the visa requirements as costly and bureaucratic barriers that threaten the industry's talent pipeline, described the move as a big victory. So visas no longer required for engagements of less than 90 days for UK musicians. And according to the organisation UK Music, it's a big victory. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from previous videos. One here from Bill, 15 seats is only 1.1%. Wow! Yeah, Bill, thanks for the comment and referring to an article that we saw the other day about this new political party here in Spain, España Vaciada, or Empty Spain, who with only 1.1% of the vote would get up to 15 seats in the new parliament at the next elections. And it just goes to show how the electoral system here in Spain works. In fact, if we have a look at the poll, which was carried out by the newspaper El Español, we can see that Podemos, with 12.2% of the vote, would get 34 seats in the parliament. Mas País, with 3.3% of the vote, would get 5. The PSOE party, 25.5% of the vote, would get 100 seats. España Vaciada, 1.1% of the vote, would get 15. Other parties with 12.3% of the vote would get 38 seats. The Partido Popular, 24.9% of the vote, would get 101. The Citizens Party, with 3.9% of the vote, would only get 2 seats. And Vox, with 16.8% of the vote, would get 55. And basically the reason why this Empty Spain party would get 15 seats with only 1.1% of the vote is that votes are worth more in less populated areas. For example, in an autonomous community like Madrid, which has a big population, one seat is worth around 122,000 votes, whereas in the province of Teruel, which has a smaller population, you only need 26,000 votes to get a seat. And where is this political party going to be prominent? Well, as the name suggests, in parts of Spain that don't have big populations. One here from 1996 Freddie, every country is in the same boat re healthcare. An old man was kept waiting 14 hours for an ambulance in the UK the other day. Yeah, Freddie, thanks for the comment and referring to an article that we saw the other day also, that Spain's public healthcare system is struggling to get back to normal after various waves of the coronavirus pandemic. And I imagine that every country that has been smashed by this pandemic is struggling to get its healthcare systems back to normal. I know that here where I live, a lot of people are complaining that it takes a very long time to get an appointment to see a GP nowadays. In fact, a friend of mine recently tried to see a doctor and was told that it was going to take 10 days to get an appointment. So bad news for the public health system, but the good news is that the Prime Minister yesterday said that he's going to inject some 1.5 billion euros into the system. So we'll see if it makes a difference. One here from Jonathan, real estate, it's the same everywhere. Remember how some people were saying that COVID would be the end of big cities? Not exactly. People are flocking back to city centres. I wish Spain the best with the locally produced vaccine. The more solutions available to the problem, the better off we'll all be. Yeah, Jonathan, thanks for the comment. And I do remember that talk around last year at the height of the pandemic, saying that people were going to flee big cities, look for smaller cities or smaller towns with a better quality of life. I also remember hearing last year that working from home was going to be the normal thing to do, but that also is not the case. When it comes to the Spanish vaccine, with a bit of luck, it should be up and running soon. And I couldn't agree with you more when you say that the more solutions available to this problem, the better off we will all be. And I'll just translate that for the anti-vaxxers. Blah, 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 blah. One here from Chrissy. I couldn't think of anything worse. I couldn't live in a flat. Hey, Chrissy, thanks for the comment and referring to the housing boom that we currently have here in Spain, and an article that we saw yesterday in which a couple said that they recently bought a flat for 220,000 euros in the Madrid suburb Moratalaz. But as we all know, when it comes to housing here in Spain, flats are the majority option. And although I don't know the exact percentages, not many people here in Spain don't live in this type of accommodation. So living in a flat might not be your cup of tea, but for the majority of the population here, there's not much choice. And finally, one here from Gary. I really enjoy your videos. Thank you. Can I be nosy and ask if this is your full-time job? You post quite a few videos and I would imagine they take some time to put together. Yeah, Gary, thanks for the comment, and I don't have a problem answering your question. And the simple answer is that no, this is not my full-time job. And although I do post quite a few videos, I'd say that it takes up about a third of my time. So not quite full-time yet, but in the future, who knows? On that note, I'll wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the video out as you normally do. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.